Hi everyone, good afternoon. I know I'm kind of on the graveyard shift really because it's a little bit late in the day, so I appreciate you staying behind to hear about my business. I guess I have to say thank you. Thanks to Jim and thanks for everyone at Master Investor for giving us the opportunity to pitch yesterday as a startup for the Startup Prize, and even better news that we won, which is great. So I'm Ollie, I'm CEO of businessfinancecompared.com. We're an online platform that connects small businesses with the finance they need to grow in a clear, transparent and independent way. I'm a small business owner myself and an entrepreneur, and I've been through the process of applying for business finance, and I describe it as somewhere between, or a combination of, frustrating, quite painful and definitely confusing. And I've got the battle scars from going through that process. If you look at consumer finance, everyone knows that if you want to get a great credit card deal, you go to someone like Money Supermarket. And the people doing that and consumers are the same people that are running the small businesses that really are the lifeblood of our economy in the UK. But if you come to business finance, there's really nothing of the equivalent, which I just find absolutely crazy. So that's why we've launched Business Finance Compared. Now, the small business lending market is an absolutely huge market. There's £30 billion lent to small businesses every year. But as I said before, it's a very confused market, and that means that actually the majority of small businesses don't use finance to help grow their business. And those that do are actually paying too much for the finance they need. And that's really bad news for those businesses, and it's bad news for the economy as a whole. But with Business Finance Compared, we're going to fix that. I always look at websites like Money Supermarket for a bit of inspiration. So Money Supermarket is now a £1.5 billion public listed company, and they're in a market where the winner really does take all. And with this platform, we think we're really going to win, and if we do, then we're going to win really big. Me and my team have made a lot of progress already in terms of fixing the problem in the market. We're only 90 days old, but we're growing really fast, and we've got great feedback from both small businesses and the lenders we connect them to in terms of the platform. We launched the platform in early March. We've had well over 1,000 visitors to the site, and we've effectively arranged well over 100 finance deals for small businesses already. And we're already generating revenue just 90 days after we got started. What I was going to do now was tell you a bit more about the market and why it's the right time to positively disrupt the market. So there's 5 million SMEs in the UK, and that number's growing year on year and at an unprecedented rate. Small businesses in the UK account for almost half of our private sector turnover and 14 million jobs. And there's 500,000 small businesses that look for a new source of finance every year. I've looked really closely at why the market's so stagnant at the moment. And these are two stats that always stand out to me. So 57% of small businesses spend less than an hour when they search for finance, and 71% of them only ever look at one provider. That's because the market is so confused. As I mentioned before, I've been through it, and it is a real nightmare to apply for business finance. And I'm not alone. There's 35% of small businesses that when they started an application process, they didn't even finish it. And for those people that did go through the application process and were unfortunately turned down, 43% of those were due to failing on a credit score. Yet we know from research that the vast majority of small businesses have no idea what their business credit score is, what it means and how it works. So with all of this confusion, what we see is a very high decline rate. So for businesses looking to borrow for the first time, the rejection rate is up as high as 60%. And there's over 100,000 small businesses that are turned down by their bank every year. And the result, as I mentioned before, is that small businesses just aren't using finance to grow, and where they are, they're paying too much. So just imagine the positive impact we're going to have on the economy and on how many jobs we're going to create when we change this market. So let me tell you a bit more about the platform and how it works. We've focused on simplicity within our platform. That's on the basis that we know that the thing that's most important to SMEs, apart from finance, is time. They don't have a lot of time at all. I believe if it's taking you longer than a minute to find finance for your business, then that's a minute that you've wasted, and you could have been out there generating revenue for your business and helping it grow. So I've spent a lot of time with small businesses to understand what their finance journey is, and there's 3 things that they say time and time again that they really want. They want clarity on what their options are. and they want to know what they're going to be approved for and what the costs of that are. So what we do is we ask the small business a simple set of questions, and we match them to the most appropriate finance for them where they will be approved. The second thing they want is transparency, so they want to know how their data is being used, because we are handling some data from that business. So what we do is we make sure we're only gathering the data we need, and our matching process has no impact on their credit score. The third thing they want is independence. They want to know we're not biased, and this is another thing that we're doing differently. We're presenting just the products that are right for that small business and that they're eligible for, and we're giving the SME the choice all the way through their journey. We never ranking the lenders based on what we get paid. It's always down to the SME and how they want to select who they want to lend to them. So how do we make money then? Because ultimately we need to. Well, first things first, we never charge SMEs for our service, so it's absolutely free to SMEs. What we do is we take a share of the value chain from lenders. So typically in small business lending, a lender will spend about £2,000 acquiring a new customer. So we take a chunk of that value. So I charge lenders for the leads that I send through to them, and then my economics is basically being able to charge more for leads than it costs me to originate people into my platform. But I don't think that's a very sustainable model in the long term. It could be quite easy to commoditize as new platforms come into the market or new lenders. So our future revenue model that we're working towards and testing with some of our lenders is to take a share of the lifetime value of the loan. So that makes sure that we're even more incentivized to match small businesses very, very accurately to the finance that they'll get. So we'll only have to send one lender the inquiry from the small business, because our matching is based on all of their credit policy, and we know that they'll approve that small business because they're right for them. What that gives us is a really sustainable business model. So lenders love us because we generate a lot more customers for them of a much higher quality and at a much lower cost than they can do directly. And small businesses, when they love us, they'll come back to us every time they need finance, year on year, and they'll recommend us to all of their peers. In terms of investment, a lot of people are here today to see whether they can invest in new businesses. So I don't need investment right now. I'm fortunate enough to have enough funding to get me through the next 12 to 18 months. But I will then need investment to grow out my technology team, to continue building the data links that enable us to automatically match the small business to lenders, and also to expand out the service categories we have. So at the moment, we can help a small business find finance, but in the future, we'll help them compare insurance options, potentially energy options, and credit cards and other services that those small businesses need. And then the other thing will be to continue to ramp up our marketing spend, because we need to build our brand awareness and continue to be the leading brand in this market. So the final thing I was going to talk about is why I believe Business Finance Compared is going to be a massive company. I really do believe it will be a £200 million business in the next 5 years. I've taken you through the need in the market. I think that's pretty obvious. And to be fair, I'm not the only person to come up with a good idea in this space, but I do have quite an unfair advantage above my competitors. The main thing is that I've built a £200 million business before. I was part of the management team at a company called TDX Group, and what I did there was build intermediary platforms in the consumer credit market to help put the value chain but much more back in the hands of the consumer. So a really quick example of what I built at TDX. I built a platform called the Insolvency Exchange. If you were a consumer about 10 years ago and you were in financial difficulty and struggling, you would probably go to an insolvency practitioner. They would charge you about £2,000, and then what they would do is they'd phone up your bank for you and say to the bank, this person can't afford to pay, they're only going to pay back half of their debt. And the banks had no control over this process at all, and consumers were being ripped off. And so I built a platform that enabled the banks to vote on these insolvency cases. And what that did was enable them to have greater control, and we protected consumers. Within 3 years of launching that platform, we were processing 95% of cases in the market. We'd halved the fees that consumers were having to pay, and they were repaying their debts faster. As a management team, we sold that business, TDX, to Equifax last year for £200 million. The second advantage I've got is the depth that we've got to our platform. So we really are transforming how business loans are underwritten by automating the whole process. And that will make the market more competitive and ultimately make finance cheaper for the small businesses that need it. The third thing is that I am currently backed by a very strong board. They've got a lot of experience in acquiring customers and monetizing customers in scale, which is what our business model is about. But the thing that's, I think, most exciting about this business and why people should try to invest in me and the business is that we really are passionate, as a small business ourselves, of making other small businesses successful by getting them the finance they need to grow. Thanks for listening. If anyone wants to ask any questions, kind of go ahead.